Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, enters the sentimental, intuitive, nurturing waters of Cancer Wednesday, July 30th, 8:57 p.m. Pacific Time. Adjust for your time zone accordingly. Hello, my name is Eliane-Nicole, and I'm your astrologer and tarot reader. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the transit of Venus in Cancer, which is July 30th to August 25th, 2025. I'm going to talk about the key aspects that she's making during this transit, like the square to Saturn and Neptune in Aries, and the conjunction to Jupiter, and the trine to the North Node. I'm going to talk about the trine to the North Node in Pisces. I'm going to talk about which signs this transit is going to affect the most personally and how and why. I will touch on some of the collective expressions of the transit. And finally, I will take it through all 12 rising signs and speak specifically to the house that Venus is transiting in for each of the rising signs and how this Venus in Cancer transit might show up in your life. And then finally, at the end, I'm going to pick a tarot card and see what the tarot has to add to the conversation. But first, I want to say, if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel, Eliane-Nicole. My channel is my name. Please hit the notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. Please like, please comment, please share. It helps me in the algorithm. It helps me grow on my channel and grow my business and grow my community. And it puts me in a position to continue to give these free astrological offerings. You can follow me on Instagram at astrology.tarot.eliane-nicole. I have an Astrology and Tarot by Eliane-Nicole Facebook page that you can also follow. To book a reading with me, there will be a link below in the notes of the description of this video to book a reading with me. What else did I want to say? And if you would like to thank me for this offering by buying me a coffee or a tea or a croissant, then there will be a link to my Venmo to make a donation also in the description below. And now, without further ado, I'm going to get into the translation of what it means that Venus is moving through Cancer. And so first of all, I just want to talk about the general attributes of Venus in Cancer. You know, if you are born with Venus in Cancer, or you know someone who has Venus in Cancer, you know that placement, it's a very sweet placement for the goddess of love and beauty. It's very nurturing, it's very sweet. This is someone who probably likes to bake. This is someone who, you know, makes their environment and the decor of their environment very cozy, very homey. You know, the shadow side of Venus in Cancer can be, you know, clingy or needy. But in general, when Venus is moving through Cancer, you know, she's coming out of Gemini, where she's been for the past 3 weeks, where she's been very social and airy and flirty and playful. And now Cancer is much more like, you know, homey and internal, a little bit more, definitely more emotional, and very like sensitive and more private. Venus in Cancer can be very nostalgic, you know, and so Venus rules love and romance, and so in that respect, we can be talking about nostalgia regarding, you know, loves of the past, or, you know, a certain time when your relationship was in a different place in the past, or just, you know, the old times that you enjoyed together, thinking of them, reminiscing, you know. But it can also be nostalgic in art. So it can be a time where you're drawn to watching old movies, listening to old music, you know, looking at old photographs, reading old books, like that kind of stuff. And, you know, in terms of like style and beauty, it's the same. You know, I think Venus in Cancer tends to be like, you know, likes to dress in vintage. So you may find yourself in the mood to dress more that way, or in some like classic, like older reminiscent style from the past, you know, with hair or makeup or clothes, you know. Yeah, in general, you know, you can really have a sweet tooth, you know, that can come up strong during Venus and Cancer. And, you know, it's really a time where the focus is how our emotional needs are being met in love, and, you know, how we're giving in love and how we're receiving in love. So I think that obviously Cancers are going to be affected the most personally. You know, if you have Sun, Moon, or Rising in Cancer, you know, I mean, if you have Rising, it's in your first house. It's the most personal house. So, you know, I'm going to get to breaking it down in the rising signs later. But if it's your Sun, you know, this can be, you know, very romantic transit if it hits your Sun, or also very artistic and creative. When it hits, and if it hits your Moon, you know, it can be just a very sentimental, emotional, beautiful, sweet time. And so, in general, for the people in Cancer, you're really going to enjoy this transit. Anyone who has a lot of Cancer placements, but especially Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising. Now, for Capricorn, it's going to be opposing your planets. So if you have Capricorn, Sun, Moon, or Rising, or Venus, or Mars, or Jupiter, or Saturn, as Venus goes through Cancer at some point, she will oppose your personal planet. And so that Cancer Venus opposition, I mean, Venus is still a benefic, you know, and so it's still, you know, there's still a lot of grace around it, even though the opposition is a challenging aspect. I mean, it can represent, you know, when she's opposing your planets, it can represent feeling some kind of oppositional forces around the topics of love and romance, or beauty, or art, or style, or justice, or possibly money, or pleasure, or sex, you know, all the kind of Venusian things. You know, it can also represent, when Venus is opposing one of your personal planets, the possibility of like a standoff with a sister, or a woman, or a daughter, and, you know, or a girlfriend, you know, just a friend. And so, and then for Capricorn, I think in general, it can bring up a lot of emotion, which I know isn't easy for Capricorn, because Capricorn usually likes to be more guarded with their emotions. So I do think that this transit of Venus is kind of like an uncomfortably emotional time for Capricorn, but it's really good for Capricorns. And then for Libras and Cancers, it will be squaring your place. I mean, Libras and Aries, it will be squaring your placement. And Aries, this is a big one for you too. This is a big transit for Aries, because it's immediately as Venus enters Cancer, she's in an applying square with Saturn and Neptune, who are almost conjunct in Aries. You know, if you've been following my astrology, I have not done a video yet on the Saturn Neptune conjunction, and I feel like I should. You know, I kind of waited on it because the exact conjunction isn't until February of 2026, but it's kind of like, now I feel like in almost every video I'm doing, I need to talk about that to contextualize what's going on. So it almost seems like I should just do the Saturn Neptune conjunction video, and so I probably will. I still have to do Uranus and Gemini too. That's a big one. That started July 7th, and I haven't done that video, but it's a long transit, and I am going to do that video too, because that's a really important one to understand. And, you know, this whole sky, all of these planets, they're all working together, you know, and, you know, as above, so below. And the planets represent different parts of our psyche, different parts of our body, different systems in our body, different people in our lives, different relationships in our lives, different topics in our lives. There's so many different levels that the planets are operating on. And so in these videos, I just try to take it apart into bite-sized chunks, you know, but it's really by putting it all together that you get a holistic view of like the tapestry of our lives, the very intricate, you know, rich tapestry of our lives. And you really see with astrology how like each day is a unique magical fingerprint, you know? So anyway, I digress. Venus in Cancer, sweet, cozy Venus in Cancer. Aries will be very affected by the square. I'm going to talk more about that when I get to the aspects and I get to the rising signs, which is coming up. But stick around, Aries, Sun, Moon, Rising, any significant Aries placements if you have Venus in Aries too. And then Libra will be on the other square. And so the Libra Cancer dynamic, the square, that is a completely different dynamic, you know. Aries, the Cancer Aries dynamic is water and fire. And so I'm going to talk more about that when I get to that part. But the Venus Libra square is water and air. And so, you know, it's a different elemental combination, even though they're both square. So the squares are challenging in different ways for Libras. You know, I think that in the Libra Cancer square, you know, that's an interesting one to think about. But, you know, Libra is definitely a little bit more like, you know, intellectual and theoretical. And Cancer is a lot more, you know, kind of embodied and emotional. And so there could be a conflict between those kinds of energies when, you know, for Libras and Cancers as this comes up. Yeah, interesting. So it's sometimes when I'm doing these readings, I start thinking about it in terms of my own life while I'm doing, because as I'm doing the reading for you, I'm really doing the reading for myself too. You know, I'm transmitting and I'm learning from the astrology just as I'm sharing the astrology. So yeah, and I'm a Libra, so, you know, that's why I was kind of reflecting on that Libra Cancer square. I have 5 planets in Libra, so as Venus is going through Cancer, she will hit all 5 planets and the asteroid. I have 5 planets and an asteroid. So she's going to go ding, 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 ding in a square. So contemplating the Cancer Libra angle of the square is definitely interesting. And I think I'll get more into that when I get to the rising signs at the end. But so yeah, so all of the cardinal signs will be very impacted. The water signs are going to love this. Pisces rising, Scorpio sun, moon, or rising, Pisces sun, moon, or rising, or Venus. This is going to, Venus will be forming a trine with your personal planets as she travels through Cancer at some point. And, you know, and I say in these videos, as she travels through Cancer at some point, if you get a reading, we can get it down to the exact days that Venus is in a personal aspect to your planets, because I'll be looking at your personal chart. And so I always encourage people to book a reading with me. I read on Zoom, so I can read for people anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. I would love to read for you. Again, in the description notes of my YouTube, there's a link to book a reading with me. I'll also put an email if you have questions that you can ask me. But yeah, Pisces and Scorpio placements are really going to enjoy this Venus in Cancer. It's going to be very, potentially very romantic, very healing. It can be very lucrative financially. And it can just be, in general, a time of where you are surrounded by beauty and or art and or love, pleasure, attraction, you know, just all the good stuff of life. So it's really going to be enjoyable for the water signs. And for the remaining earth signs, Virgo and Taurus, this Venus in Cancer transit is forming a sextile with your placements if you have sun, moon, and rising in Virgo or Taurus. And so it's very, you know, it's an opportunity. There's an opportunity, you know, it's fertile. It's creative, fertile soil. And that can be literally fertile, like in terms of conceiving babies, but also in terms of like conceiving, you know, creative ideas that have the capacity to be birthed into the world and actually grow and bloom. Or, you know, it could even be growing a garden or growing, it's an opportunity to grow something in your life between the houses, you know, something beautiful, you know, a beautiful romance, a beautiful work of art, you know, you know, just something in that realm. And so, yeah, the sextiles are opportunities. They don't land in your lap. And that's why, another reason why I love bringing them up in astrology. A lot of astrologers skip over the sextiles because they're subtle aspects. And a lot of times astrologers like to focus on the squares and the oppositions because they're the tough aspects, and those are the things that come up in life that grab our attention and show us where our spiritual lessons are and what we need to work on. But I think that, you know, if you just focus on that, it makes astrology feel like more like negative. And I think that sometimes the sextiles and the trines, they just go over people's head because people take the blessings for granted because it's the stuff that comes easy to them. So I definitely like to point out the sextiles, and I think that knowing about them gives you an advantage because, you know, as I always say, you have to recognize the blessing to receive it. And if you know your astrology and you know the houses and the planets where the sextile is happening, you can actually look for the opportunity and really intentionally interact with it instead of letting it pass you by. Excuse me, I'm just clearing my throat. So, yes, I think I went through all the planets that will be affected the most personally. So I talked about all the cardinal signs, the water signs, the earth signs. And now I'm going to talk about the aspects that Venus is making as she goes through. So she is, so as soon as she enters on the 30th, she's in an applying aspect to Saturn and Neptune and Aries. And if you haven't already, watch my Neptune into Aries video. I will put a link to it in the notes of this video. Watch my Saturn into Aries video. I will put a link to it in the notes of this video. Watch my Saturn retrograde in Aries video. I will put a link to it in the description notes of this video. And also watch my new moon of Leo video, because we're still in the new moon of Leo cycle. And the new moon of Leo tells a story of the entire lunar cycle, taking us from July 24th or 25th all the way till August 22nd. So, you know, all of those videos are going to give so much more context to what I'm about to say right now. And I don't want to get too much into it right now. But the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that doesn't perfect really into February 2026 has kind of been in play all summer, and it still is now, and Venus comes into direct contact with them as soon as she enters Cancer. And so while Venus in Cancer is normally a very sweet and cozy and pleasant and happy transit, she does have to clear some really rocky waters before she gets to smooth sailing, which she does get to smooth sailing, but there are some choppy waters first. And Venus in Cancer coming into the square with Neptune and Saturn. You have to look at Neptune and Saturn both separately because she squares Saturn and then she squares Neptune, but then we also have to look at them together as an entity because they are almost an entity. Now, Saturn is the planet about, boundaries and discipline and commitment and, the structures in our lives, limits and restrictions and boundaries and tests and challenges. And Saturn is about reality, and so Venus coming into the square with Saturn indicates the potential of coming up against limitations around love, romance, beauty, art, justice, money, Venus coming up against the square with Saturn can indicate hurt feelings in a romantic relationship. The Aries energy is very brash and blunt and bold. The Cancer energy is very sensitive. And so there can be a conflict where those two kinds of energies are, coming up against each other in a harsh way. There could be tears. There could be, this is August 1st, by the way. Both Venus square Saturn and Venus square Neptune are August 1st. So also Aries is very independent and Cancer is very attached. So there could be a conflict or struggle that's coming up between those energies, attachment versus independence. It can also be, what the self wants to do or pursue versus what the family needs are, or the family requirements are. These are all the kinds of conflicts that could be coming up for Venus around August 1st, it could be, experiencing limitations in beauty and the pursuit of beauty, limitations in love and the pursuit of love, limitations in art and the pursuit of art. Any of the areas that Venus rules, we may be getting a no, a feeling of rejection, a boundary, a limitation. There may be a test or a challenge. And it's just a place where Saturn is asking us to mature and in terms of, yes, emotional maturity and a maturity in terms of like our attachment style. Attachment style is such a big thing these days. Anyway, Venus in Cancer, I feel like that transit brings up that idea of attachment styles. It's like a time where it's going to hold up a mirror to whatever our attachment style is as Venus is going through Cancer, whatever sign you are. I think that's just kind of generally in the air. But so first there's the square with Saturn, and that can be a reality check in love, a reality check around beauty, a reality check around art, a reality check around money. These are all ways that the Venus Saturn square can go, and it depends on your own personal astrology, how it will affect you personally. I'm going to take it through the 12 rising signs in just a bit, but so then she hits the square with Neptune, which is a completely different kinds of energy. This can be disillusionment in love. This can be, this is like pop the balloon. The fantasy is popping in love, the veil, it's like the rose-colored glasses, that idealistic impression of love or beauty or art that we had is being challenged in some way. And creatively, this kind of challenge can be good because I think for artists, it can help an artist go beyond the cliche or just the first thing they thought of and really have to kind of dig deeper or really like kind of tune into the oversoul to like, work out that problem and get to the next level, and art becomes better. But like for, in love, this can be very disillusioning. This can be kind of like, the fantasy is coming you know, the fantasy is being challenged, you know, you know, there's a lot of idealism when you get Neptune and you know, idealism, fantasy, you know, but also creativity, transcendence, you know, altered states of mind, you know, Venus square Neptune can bring up issues with that, like, you know, like a tough situation that arises from the result of intoxication of some kind or another, whether that's intoxication from a substance or intoxication from a person, you know, the kind of injury that can result from being intoxicated in that way. And so all of those are things that can come up during the Venus-Neptune square. And so you see we have Venus-Saturn, Venus-Neptune, both the same day, August 1st. August 1st is an important day. And it's a tough day. It's a tough day in love. And these are choppy waters. You know, Venus is caught in a riptide, so to speak. And this makes me say, so who is Venus? Who is Venus? Venus is going to be anyone who's a Libra or Taurus, sun or moon or rising, or really anyone who's a Libra, sun or rising, or if you have a stellium in Libra of any kind, your Venus, whether you're a man or a woman. You know, Venus is artists, Venus is artists, Venus is lovers. You know, Venus rules marriage and love and romance, but also friendship, art and beauty, you know, justice and money, pleasure, attraction, sex, you know. So all of these things are under the purview of Venus. And so that's who I'm talking about. Venus can be sisters or daughters or, you know, the women in your life. What else did I want to say? So Venus, and then with Venus, with Saturn and Neptune conjunct, I just talked about them both separately, but as one unit, they're representing this historical moment, right, in the world, where old systems and structures are dissolving, a new dream is being born for the world, and in our personal lives, this is happening in a house in our chart. And if you have planets in the early degrees of any sign, this Saturn Neptune conjunction in the early degrees of Aries is very, very impactful. But especially if you're an Aries. And so Aries, Cancer, the cardinal signs, Libra, Capricorn, you guys are very much feeling this the strongest, especially if you have planets in the early degrees. And it's kind of being in a riptide, you know, in love or with, you know, with love or art or friendship or beauty or sex or, you know, and you know, with the riptide, you're not supposed to fight it. You're not supposed to try and swim. The water is moving too quickly. It's too strong. Even an Olympic swimmer can't fight a riptide, you know? And so this Venus squaring Saturn and Neptune in the beginning as she enters in Cancer, because, you know, it's watery. So it is like, and Neptune is the ocean. It is very much riptide energy. And so I urge you, Venus, whoever you are out there, the women, the Libras, the Tauruses, the men who are Taurus rising and Libra rising, you know, the artists, the lovers, don't fight the riptide. Get on your back and float. Even if it takes you out away, it's better than fighting and getting exhausted and possibly drowning. You know, just float until you get to a place where the waves are coming back in. And that is going to happen when Venus clears the square with Neptune and Saturn, because she's heading towards the conjunction with Jupiter, which is quite possibly the luckiest, most fortunate, benevolent day of the year. Jupiter conjunct Venus in Cancer, where Jupiter is exalted, the two benefics coming together. And you only get this once every 12 years. The last time Jupiter was in Cancer 12 years ago, they somehow missed each other. We're going to get it twice this time. We're getting it August 11th and then once next summer, right before Jupiter leaves Cancer. But yeah, this is one of the most auspicious days of the year. Again, depending on your rising sign, it could appear in your life in a different place. And so I'm going to take it through the 12 rising signs at the end of this video to talk more specifically. But in general, this brings abundance of love and or money, you know, compassion, mercy, you know, joy, just, you know, prosperity, you know, flow. All of these just really good high vibratory things are signaled by this aspect on August 11th between Jupiter and Cancer. And so it's kind of like once she gets through those choppy waters, she's going to be in a really, really beautiful position. And then on August 15th, she goes on to trine the North Node in Pisces. And so Venus is really aligning with her higher self, with her higher spiritual calling, with her higher artistic calling, with her higher healing calling, you know, with her higher spiritual or religious calling, you know. That's what the North Node is. It almost feels like, you know, I mean, it feels like a baptism, you know. Even the Venus conjunct Jupiter has baptism vibes. It's very like cleansing and purifying, and you know, it's like birth of, you know, it's like the birth of Venus, literally. But the North Node Venus trine is also like, you know, Venus is aligning with her North Star, you know, and it's a really beautiful poetic kind of alignment. And so, and for people with Scorpio placements, that will create a grand trine. So Scorpios out there are really going to love that August 15th. But now I'm going to take it through the houses and talk about the 12 rising signs. So listen for your rising sign. If you are an Aries rising, Venus and Cancer will be traveling through your 4th house. So this might be a time where you're wanting to beautify your home more. You may be making your home more cozy. You might find yourself like baking more, doing more home cooked meals for your partner or loved one to show them how much you love them. Yeah, Venus also rules your 2nd house and your 7th house. So you may be, yeah, spending money on beautifying your homes. You may be spending money on buying a nice gift for your partner, a nice romantic gift. It definitely brings in for Aries rising home and romance and money all together, this transit. Okay, so for my Taurus risings, Venus and Cancer will be traveling through the 3rd house of your neighborhood, your neighbors, siblings, your daily commute. It can be your communications, your writing. I look at the 3rd house for elementary school and high school. I look at the 3rd house for short trips. I look at the 3rd house for women's groups. So for Taurus rising, Venus and Cancer will be, you know, maybe adding some beauty to your community in some way, to your neighborhood. It may be bringing a, you know, beautiful person into your daily commute who you interact with. It could be bringing a romantic interest that you meet within your daily commute and your daily errands. It could bring bonding, really sweet bonding time with siblings or neighbors. You know, this is very like you know, somebody, you know, neighbors inviting you over to a nice dinner, or you inviting your neighbors over to a nice home cooked dinner, or doing that with your siblings or vice versa. That's very much the energy of Venus traveling through Cancer. And for through Cancer, for Taurus risings through your third house, and Venus rules your first and your sixth. So this could be also a time of, you know, just paying more attention to your beauty and your appearance. You could be having some extra glow right now, looking, you know, particularly kind of like attractive to others. And you could also be focusing on, you know, really like improving your health, and a lot of like self-care and like, you know, wellness, like a lot of like proactive kind of health things to pamper and take care of yourself while Venus is in Cancer. Oh yeah, I wanted to go back to Aries rising and say, for Aries rising, when Venus conjoins Jupiter in your fourth house, that could be buying a new home. That could be the announcement of a pregnancy. That could be a conception. That could be the expansion of your home. This could just be a really pleasant event with family and friends. You know, when it squares off with Neptune and Saturn in your first house, this has a lot to do with your own identity and how it's shifting right now at this time in your life. And so it may be a situation on August 1st where you're dealing with family, and, you know, there's a challenge or a conflict because of this new identity that's kind of, that you're birthing right now, that maybe they don't quite understand, but you're going to get to the other side of it by, you know, later in the month, so don't worry about it. But you know, August 8th it's a conflict, but by August 11th it all comes around and is healed and is in a really great place. So just float, you know, don't fight the current, just float. When Venus trines the North Node in Pisces on the 15th for Aries rising, it'll be with your 12th house and your house of home. And so that is a healing taking place between your unconscious, you know, things maybe that you didn't know about your family from the past, but that's helping you find a new direction and clarity in your path in life. There's so many different things it can be, but I want to keep going. Now for Taurus risings, where I was with the Jupiter in your third house, the square is going to be towards, it's going to be to Neptune and Saturn in your 12th house. So that 12th house is very much the unconscious material that you're dealing with. And so there could be something that your siblings, something that comes up with your siblings or neighbors that brings up, you know, something from your blind spot, something. Taurus rising is on the verge of some years of really delving more deeply into the depths of their soul, kind of looking back over life where maybe there have been past traumas or pains or things that have happened that you just never really dealt with because you just kept going and you were just being like the practical, methodical, dutiful Taurus rising. And now you're coming up at a point where it's going to be, you know, this 12th house is going to be lit up for you, you know, for the next, I mean, in a really strong way, the next 2.5 years, but really for the next 14 years. And so great time to get a reading if you're a Taurus rising. But this Venus is going to be, I think, gently stirring the pot of some of this unconscious material that you may or may not already be aware of, depending on your like evolution, where you are in the realm of self-awareness. But you will become aware of it, but if you have a sun, moon, or a rising in Taurus, when it gets to your planets, again, it's just in the very early stages. So people in the early cardinal signs are really feeling this Aries Neptune conjunction. But yeah, and then for Taurus rising, Venus trine the North Node on August 15th it's really beautiful because it's in a sextile with your energy, so it's creating beautiful opportunities. But this trine is it looks like really good times with friends, possibly old friends that grew up in the same neighborhood with you, or friends that you went to elementary school with or high school with, and really just getting together maybe in the old stomping grounds, and just like a really like healing, kind of spiritually uplifting time that might even somehow like create a new path or direction or unity within the friendship. It may be like a revival or something like that, because we've also got, Mercury retrograde, which I'm not really talking about, but that's also going on in the backdrop right now. So that is Taurus rising. Cancer rising, it's in your first house, so this is a glow up time for you. This is a very sweet time for you. People are attracted to you. You're looking good. You're feeling good. Now, August 1st, we do have to clear the square with Neptune, with Saturn and Neptune. And that'll kind of be July 31st till, August 5th, let's say, So the square with Neptune and Saturn for Venus and Cancer, it's going to have to do with either your work life, your career, or your public profile, your status, your reputation, possibly your relationship to authority, possibly father stuff. But that is how it's happening for Cancer rising. And so you may have to go through some choppy waters in those areas of your life the first few days of Venus and Cancer. But then she clears that and she conjoins with Jupiter. And this is just a beautiful day for you. Just enjoy the day. Bask in the beauty that will surround you on this day. Good things are happening August 11th for Cancer rising. And then on August 15th, when she trines the North Node in Pisces, this is very healing energy. It can be very spiritually uplifting. You can be feeling that you are really getting into alignment with your higher purpose and what your path and your mission is in life. You may be making plans to travel abroad, overseas, on a really incredible trip. It could be a spiritual journey, or you may be just, going to be somewhere near a beautiful body of water. You may be publishing something, maybe some music or a film, or something else. You could be broadcasting something, or it could be you could be deciding to go back to school. This could have to do with something in higher education. It can be receiving an honor in higher education of some kind. And so that's a very beautiful aspect for Cancer rising. For Gemini rising, it's in your second house, Venus, so this is going to be good for finances, this transit. She does have to clear the rough waters of the square with Neptune and Saturn first, which is in your 11th house. So there could be an issue that comes up with friends and money, or business associates and money, or a group or an organization that you belong to with money, a challenge or a conflict that requires action of some kind in those first few days, July 31st to August 5th, but heightened on August 1st. But once we clear that for Gemini rising, this looks like it can be a very financially lucrative transit for you, particularly on August 11th, but also August 15th. That whole stretch of August 11th to August 15th looks very lucrative for Gemini rising. For Leo rising, oh, and for Gemini rising, Venus also rules your 5th and your 5th house and your 12th house. So there could be unconscious material coming up around romance and love and attraction, maybe some things from the past. Leo rising. So Venus in Cancer is in your 12th house of hidden karma, hidden enemies, unconscious material, confined spaces. So this can be that you are dealing with some unconscious, repressed, or suppressed material as it relates to love and romance and relationships. It could be to art or beauty or other things, but usually it's love and romance. And it could be things that you have repressed or suppressed from the past pains, past traumas, past situations that are unresolved. And during this Venus in Cancer, that stuff could be coming up for you over this next 3-week transit. Now, when it's in the square to Neptune and Saturn and Aries, that's coming, the square is from your 9th house. So it does feel like this is like a kind of like a spiritual turning point in terms of having to face some old repressed or suppressed, maybe like pains or traumas or hurts around love that maybe now cause a certain kind of, neediness for attention or, other kinds of things that could come up, and then the square to Neptune can be also showing for Leo risings when Venus makes a square to Neptune in Aries. You might be having an ideal that's being crushed about, international travel plans, around possibly higher education, around broadcasting, around publishing. It could be a spiritual or religious challenge or conflict. So that's August 1st for Cancer, for Leo rising. It does feel like a conflict with your belief systems and love, something like that. Then she clears that, and those choppy waters are over, and she goes into a conjunction with Jupiter in your 12th house. This is a very beautiful aspect for expanding your inner world and expanding your consciousness around love, family, how the past has made you the person that you are today in all of the best ways. You may just find this surge of like a realization of this, like just dropping into your body. And again, it may be a result of the choppy waters that you had to go through and kind of look at things, the reality check of the Saturn square to Venus or the Saturn square to Neptune that was August 1st. By August 11th, it's coming full circle, and it feels like this really kind of abundant, full, satisfied feeling in your inner world for a Leo rising. And then the trine to the North Node in Pisces for Leo rising will happen in your 8th house of other people's money. And so you could be coming into money, Leo rising, from an inheritance, a gift, a loan, an investment. But it does look like you are coming into money. It could also be that your spouse or partner is coming into money. And it looks like it's coming from either maybe could possibly be from a Pisces or just from a Piscean type or from a family member or from a, it looks like it's money that it's like, you know how they say all money ain't good money. It looks like good money. It looks like money that's aligned with your spiritual values, or is going to put you in a position where you are able to create your path forward in alignment with your spiritual values. That's Leo rising. Virgo rising. Venus in Cancer is traveling through your 11th house of friends and business associates and groups and organizations. So this should be a really pleasant, beautiful transit around your friendships. And also this can be hopes and aspirations. Again, choppy waters in the beginning. She squares Aries, Saturn and Neptune and Aries in the 8th house of other people's money. So this can represent for Virgo rising possibly a conflict with a friend and money, or, something like that. But those choppy waters resolve, first there's a reality check around, friends and money, and then there's some vagueness or maybe fantasy or disillusionment. But then we get past those choppy waters, and Venus gets to the conjunction with Jupiter on August 11th. And this is beautiful because this is just a wonderful, good time with friends. This is a wonderful event. This is also the house of dreams and aspirations. So this could be the planting of the seed of a new dream that is going to bloom and blossom and grow in ways that you can't imagine. It's great for seed planting, new dreams and hopes for Virgo rising. And then the North Node in Pisces, the trine, for single Virgo risings, this could be the beginning of a very beautiful relationship with someone who was a friend or a colleague or business associate before and is now moving into the realm of your lover, and you guys are aligned in your values and moving forward in this way. It looks very spiritually, like a spiritually aligned relationship coming into play for Virgo risings, one that's based on friendship and shared spiritual values. So I'm happy for and then for, Virgo risings who are married, looks like, friendship and love and romance, all of it is really aligning and beautiful. You could be aligning with a higher purpose with your partner in terms of where you guys want to go as a couple. You could be having some really great times with friends as a couple, or just, kind of planting new hopes and aspirations, new dreams and aspirations as a couple that are really going to bloom and flourish. So it's beautiful for Virgo rising. For Libra rising, and for Virgo rising, Venus also rules your 2nd house and your 9th house. So there's a lot with where money and travel and friends, possibly, money and spirituality and friends, all of those kinds of things come. Libra rising, Venus rules your 1st house and your 8th house, but Venus in Cancer is traveling through your 10th house. So this is bringing some sweetness and good vibes to your house of work, but not before she clears the square with Saturn and Neptune. As Venus enters your house of career, dear Libra rising and sun, she forms a square to Saturn in Aries. This is a reality check in relationships. This is something where, work and public life and the relationship or marriage come into a conflict with each other that needs to be resolved. So there's some choppy waters in the beginning. But after that, Venus will be conjoining Jupiter in Cancer in the house of your career and attainment. And that is major good luck. It looks like possibly a major payday or a promotion, an honor, a recognition, just like a really good luck at work day for Libra rising on August 11th. And then on August 15th, the trine to the North Node is also, oh wait, yeah, for Libra rising, the trine to the North Node in Pisces, 6th house. So yeah, that is just a lot of flow, you know, in your work life, with your physical health, with your, it just seems like you're kind of in the flow, and aligning with your, you know, starting to get it into a place where your daily routine is aligning with what the dream is. Because a lot of times people can be busy all day doing a bunch of shit that doesn't really align with what your dream is, what your vision is. And I feel like for Libra rising, this is a time of that coming into alignment for you, where you're realizing how to make sure that all of your daily tasks are in line with the big overall dream, or useless. And then for Scorpio rising, this is such a long video. For Scorpio rising, Venus is traveling through your 9th house of spirituality and religion, international travel, higher education, broadcasting, publishing. So this could be a very sweet or lucrative 3-week transit for you, as Venus is going through that house, but not before she has to go through the choppy waters of the square to Saturn and Neptune in your 6th house. So there could be some health issues for Scorpio rising that Venus is bringing to your attention around August 1st. And everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. But it is something that Venus is saying that you need to tend to. And by, you know, so there's a reality check with your health coming for Scorpio rising August 1st. And, you know, it could be someplace where you've kind of been vague or nebulous or not paying attention. And now it's coming up and you have to deal with it. But it does look like everything's going to be okay. You have a few days of choppy waters. You get through it. And then Venus in Cancer is going to join Jupiter in the 9th house. So this looks like you may be taking a beautiful trip overseas, or planning a beautiful trip overseas. You may be publishing something on this day. You may be broadcasting something on this day. You may be having a spiritual experience on this day. And so that's a really beautiful day for Scorpio rising as well. And, you know, Scorpio rising, you've kind of got the grand trine going on. So like there is a lot of like, this can be very lucrative for you financially. There is a lot of high vibratory emotions flowing through you through this transit, you know, a lot of joy and compassion and generosity and love. And then, yeah, finally the trine to the North Node in the 5th house, it looks like it can be very, creative. Again, you may be planning a beautiful international trip. It could be the birth of a new creative project, something that you will eventually publish or broadcast out into the world, but that is going to, you know, anything that you're starting at this time creatively, Scorpio rising really has the opportunity to bloom and grow and have legs and really manifest in a strong way in the world. Sagittarius rising, Cancer is going through your 8th house of other people's money. And so this is a good time for you to be able to attract the resources and money of others. If you're a Sagittarius rising who's a fundraiser, this is a great 3 weeks for fundraising. You know, it can also mark receiving a financial gift, you know, some kind of like inheritance, or, you know, you can, you know, it has to do with, yeah, just benefiting from other people's money in some way. It could have to do with your spouse's money. There are choppy waters in the beginning. So there is a sense of there being some kind of reality check around other people's money for Aries rising on August 1st. This can be in the realm of like, you know, your children's money, your lover's money or romantic partner's money. It could have to do with how much money you've been spending on like your habits or what you do for fun. But those choppy waters are the first few days. And then once Venus clears the square with Saturn, and then the one with Neptune is like, yes, your fantasy is being, you have to come back down to earth. You can't be living in the fantasy anymore. So once you incorporate those lessons of the Saturn Neptune square, Venus will be going on to conjoin Jupiter in your house of other people's money. So this looks like a windfall of some kind. It looks like it's an inheritance, it's a gift, you know, it just looks like prosperity, money coming in from other places. So it can be receiving a loan, receiving a grant, receiving an investment, you know, something like that. And then the trine to the North Node in Pisces on the 15th for Sagittarius rising is indicating money, something to do with your home and other people's money. So this, and I'm having to get up and close this window because it's so hot. But I'm just going to keep going because I'm like an hour in. So yeah, what I was going to say was, it looks like money and home. You could be getting some money for your home, for a home, around the home, for Sagittarius rising at the trine. For Capricorn rising, Venus is traveling through your house of relationships. And so this is a really beautiful time for love. However, there are some choppy waters in the first few days. So there could be a reality check in your relationship for Capricorn Sun and Capricorn rising August 1st. The square to Neptune can create, you know, a fantasy, having to come back down to earth, a fantasy being crushed, some disillusionment, you know, challenges around love and romance and relationships. But there's still an underlying sweet tone. It's all going to work out. These are rocky waters that are necessary to get to the next phase. And then August 11th is like the most romantic day in the year. It's a beautiful, romantic, wonderful day for Capricorn rising in terms of love and relationships. If you're single, you could meet the love of your life this day. If you're in a marriage, you could be renewing your vows, or this can be a point of conception of a new child, or growing your family, growing your home, a beautiful event, celebrating family or home in some way. Really beautiful. And then the trine to the North Node in the third house, I don't know, you may be thinking about a new direction in terms of your neighborhood. And then for Aquarius rising, Venus in Cancer is traveling through your 6th house of health. So this is good for your overall health and well-being. You know, if you've been sick, then this means, or if you've been having health issues, you should be getting some good news around the health issues, some improvement around the health issues as Venus goes through Cancer in your 6th house over this 3 weeks. But the first few days are rough. So the first few days could bring up health issues or a reality check in your health, or someplace where you've been, you know, vague or not paying attention to your health that's now coming up to be looked at. And so that could bring up some rocky waters in the beginning. But once you deal with that, Venus and Jupiter are getting together in your house of health. This could be a time for conception. This could be a time of a birth. This could be a time of of planting the seeds for a new wellness regime in your life that will like just shape and improve your life in major, incredible ways. And then the trine to the North Node in Pisces on the 2nd is a really great day for finances. It looks like you can make a lot of money that day or start a new endeavor that's going to be very, very lucrative and bring you a lot of money. And then for Pisces rising, finally, wow, this has been an hour-long video. Let me know in comments if you like when I go through the 12 rising signs. For Pisces rising, Venus in Cancer is going through your 5th house of creativity. So this is a very artistic, very creative time. It can also be a time, it's also the house of children. So this could be a time where Pisces rising is having some really beautiful bonding experiences with their children over this 3-week period. But first, the rocky, choppy waters of the square with Saturn and Neptune, August 1st. There could be some kind of reality check with your children, involving your children and money. There could be some reality check involving romance or love and money. There could be some kind of reality check regarding your creative projects and money on August 1st. There could be a sense of like a fantasy that you were having around love and money or creativity and money or your children and money that you are having to come back down to earth from and face some realities of. But once you clear that and process those lessons, Venus is on her way to Jupiter in that 5th house. So Venus conjunct Jupiter on August 11th can be a hugely romantic day for you, a hugely creative day for you. It can bring extreme good luck and good fortune around children, whether you're trying to conceive. It's a great day for conception of a real baby, conception of an idea. It can be the day of a birth of a baby. It could be the day of that you are beginning a new creative project that is going to flourish and bloom and grow in the world in beautiful ways. And then finally for Pisces, the North Node in your 1st house, you are really getting into alignment with your Dharma, with your higher purpose in life, with your, North Star. So it's a beautiful time for Pisces rising. And wow, I got through all of the signs. You guys have to let me know if you like me going through all 12 rising signs. It makes the videos longer, but it gives more specifics if you know your rising. If you don't know your rising, contact me for a reading. And those are just general broad overviews. But when I go through your chart with you, it gets very, very specific down to the timing and how it's aspecting your planets. And so this is the 4 of Pentacles reversed. So it looks like a time, Venus in Cancer can be a time of spending a lot of money because Venus in Cancer likes to spend. You may be spending on the things that you love, spending on the people that you love. And that is where the square to Neptune and Saturn can create kind of a reality check. And, Saturn, Venus in Cancer is so giving and so generous and so nurturing, and it is such a beautiful thing, and we should be that way. But we cannot give to the point where we're depleted. We always have to be filling our own coffers so that we are in a position to pour into our family, our friends, our loved ones. And so I guess that's the message that I would take away as it relates to the transit in that card for now. And boy, that was maybe one of the longest readings I've ever done. Again, please book a one-on-one reading with me. Tell me if you like me taking it through the 12 rising signs at the end or not. If it makes the video too long. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful Venus in Cancer.